Hey guys, while we wait for Heroes of the Storm, unfortunately, I haven't gotten in yet, but I'm super excited and really confident that I will soon. We've heard a lot of speculation, a lot of talk about what type of new champions might be introduced, and of course that's pretty intense when you're talking about video games that we've spent a lot of time playing. So we have a list of them, highly likely, very likely, etc. Now recently, a new list has surfaced with actual data mined abilities and stuff associated to some of these characters. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a list of them, just kind of talk about which ones these data miners have managed to discover and perhaps their implementation into the game as a whole. So the first one on the list is Anub'arak. All right, this is obviously a very important character if you ever played Warcraft 3: The Frozen Throne. Arthas comes across him, and they essentially ally themselves. He's also in World of Warcraft, final boss of Trial of the Crusader, the intermittent tier between Ulduar and ICC, located in Northrend, but also in a 5-man, if I remember correctly, from ICC. But one way or the other, he's a pretty big character in the game. He's very similar. I'm pretty sure Dota actually has like the exact same. Like it's literally a Anub'arak. Even looks exactly like him. Uh, Basically like a spiked carapace. Let's see some of his abilities. Impale, definitely. Swarm, Beetles, Carrion Swarm. These are pretty basic things for a champion like that. So not surprised to see him in the game. I am kind of surprised to see not Juno. I'm surprised to see Asmodam. That's the second one on the list. The final boss of Act 3, the Hell Act in Diablo 3. Pretty surprising, honestly. I don't really know what he's going to be like. Perhaps Urgot. I mean, he kind of looks like Urgot. Obviously, this is a silly comparison to make. Let's see some of his abilities. It looks like Demon Commander. Not really sure, honestly. Don't really these don't really give us a lot of information. Globe of Annihilation, Pool of Destruction. They don't really sound like things I'm familiar with, but it's quite likely that he's going to be a pretty big tanky character as based on his size. Next up on the list is the Blademaster. Now this is an obvious addition, right? This is Master Yi from League of Legends. Everybody knows Master Yi. Everybody knows the Blademaster. Very iconic, one of the orc heroes in Warcraft 3, and essentially a dying breed of orcs that were once quite prevalent back in the day. I'm looking forward to seeing some Blademaster stuff in Warlords of Draenor, but currently in the video game there's very few. I think there's one out in Nagrand, but other than that, I don't think there is any. And some of his abilities are probably indicative. Well, Bladestorm's the only one that's been data mined, but I mean, it is Yi. Like I remember the first time I ever played Yi, it was Blademaster from the original Dota for Warcraft. The next one on the list is Chen. No real surprise here. I mean, this is a pretty iconic character introduced in the original Warcraft series. Basically comes from the Wandering Island. That's that turtle island that you could play through in Mist of Pandaria. And he's a pretty tranquil character, very similar to I think like a Gragas type, Brewmaster type character. He's got Storm, Earth, and Fire, Breath of Fire. These are Brewmaster abilities. Keg Smash, Drunken Master. They sound indicative of what I'd imagine his character to be like, but obviously we can't speculate past that. Next up on the list, a pretty strange inclusion, is Chogall. Now, Cho'gall is a very lore-heavy character in World of Warcraft, but very niche. I feel like his lore is pretty niche. That's the only way I could describe it. Like he dies in Bastion of the Twilight, and before that, Madan and that whole storyline he was involved in. But I don't feel like he's really got a great character in Heroes. I don't know exactly. The only ability he has is Engulfing Darkness on this list. Don't know what that is. Don't know what kind of champion he's going to be, but likely some type of assassin, perhaps. Maybe a ranged type of assassin. We'll see how that works. Next up on the list is Gina, of course, Resident Cutie. She is Arthas's girlfriend, quote unquote, previous to the corruption of Arthas, right? Pre-Lich King events. He's got a thing for her, and she's got a thing for him. Unfortunately, with the corruption of Arthas and then the fall of Lordaeron, she obviously switches allegiances from Arthas. But very iconic character. A lot of people want to see more of her in World of Warcraft. And they have seen a lot of her this expansion. Looking to see what she does in Warlords. Not sure if she's going to make a splash or not, but either way, obviously a lot of interest in a female lead like this. Let's see some of her abilities. Blizzard, Cone Cold, very, very, very similar to the Archmage from Warcraft 3. Literally the exact same stuff, pretty much. So I think there's a champion like that in Dota. All types of like ice ability stuff like that. So no surprise there. Kael'thas is next on the list. You guys should know Kelthas. He's a pretty well recognized character. He was the final boss in Tempest Keep and then resurrected for the final boss of, what's the name? Magister's Terrace, okay? I'm not sure why they resurrected him, but one way or the other, he was essentially brought to Illidan in his time of need. The Blood Elves were very desperate for survival, and Illidan offered them a way around it. So, main character in Burning Crusade, probably not coming back in WoD. I doubt it. I don't see why he would, but you never know. Maybe some allusion to that. Either way, let's see. This is actually a pretty interesting one. Anti-gravity, combustion, flame strike, phoenix, burning impact. Now, the reason I say this is interesting is because the champion in Dota that essentially takes his model is that Evoker, I think is the name of it. Very, very crazy character. It's got a lot of strange, like you combine a bunch of abilities. And it's his model. It is 100% Kelthas from the original Warcraft. But whether or not that means they're going to do something like that in this game has yet to be seen. Anti-gravity sounds kind of strange. Combustion. You know, these are Kelthas abilities. Probably also similar to some of Evokers. Next up on the list is Lili, of course. Cute little Lili. Small little panda. The niece, I guess, of Chen Stormstout. She's pretty heavily involved in the Half Hill lore. Valley of the Four Winds zone in Mists of Pandaria. I don't know if she's ever actually made an appearance before this, but one way or the other, I feel like this is a pretty cool addition. Not really something you would expect. Like if I were to take 10 guesses as to what champions would be in this video game, I wouldn't say Lili. But anyway, Lili's abilities: Water Serpent, Have Drink, Cloud Serpent, Rose Petals, Juggle Cups. Not really sure. Maybe like Annie. Honestly, don't know. Summoning the serpents, maybe. Perhaps throwing fire, throwing cups or something like that. I have no idea, honestly, but pretty cool. Gelbin Mech Torque is actually going to be the next on the list. High Tinker Mech Torque, as some may know him. King of the Gnomes, as others. Obviously, one of the 4 original city bosses for classic World of Warcraft. He had a very big part in the Gnomegnon. First the lore of it in classic, and then the reclamation. Past that, I honestly don't feel like he's a big character in World of Warcraft, kind of like how Sunstrider was at that point, just not really getting a lot of attention. Maybe we'll see more gnomes. They've talked about it recently, but in Heroes at least, it looks like he's pretty much going to be Launch Seeker is the only thing they have currently, but I have a feeling he's going to be kind of like Heimerdinger or something like that, or maybe more like Poppy in League. Of course, making these comparisons isn't really fair, so let's just wait and see how it goes. Now, the next one is a character that I'm not familiar with. This is, let's see how you pronounce it, actually. Mengsk? I don't know. Don't know how to pronounce a word like that with that little syllables. But he's a pretty badass-looking guy. There's no doubt about that. Heroes of the Swarm. Anyway, StarCraft. Definitely StarCraft. Apparently, he's a Terran assassin from StarCraft. Unfortunately, that's where my knowledge ends. I don't know much about this guy. Even though I did try to look him up beforehand, I still wasn't able to learn much. The lore in that game is kind of befuddling to me, as I've never played it. But one way or the other, looks like a pretty cool guy, probably an assassin-type character, if that's what he was in the previous games. Some of his abilities, post-bounty, seems like maybe, you know, you put a target on their head and they take more damage. Very similar to some champions that we've seen. I don't know most of this. Psi emitter, I don't know if they're referring to Sylar. This guy here, I don't know. But either way, we'll see how that goes. Next up is... another really strange, as strange as Lili, honestly, Marquis. This is not actually a character. This is a pet, a non-combat pet that was awarded to the participants in the 2005 BlizzCon, if I remember correctly. If I don't, please correct me. Anyway, it dances. It's got some flash to it. It's probably the rarest, probably one of the rarest non-combat pets in World of Warcraft. But this does not really have any place in the world or the Warcraft lore. So it's pretty obvious that they're going to be happy with stretching the boundaries of, you know, which type of character can be actually included in a video game like this. And that's a very healthy thing, because obviously if you're trying to get 100+ characters like a lot of MOBAs have, you're going to really need to stretch the bonds. They can't all be Arthas and Uther, you know what I mean? But anyway, Marquis' abilities are Egg Bomb, Explode, Sonar, March of the Murlocs. Likely his ultimate sounds pretty cool. Maybe somewhat similar to Fizz. I mean, obviously in physical comparison, he's related, but I can't speculate. This is a character that we know nothing about as lore. Like, I don't know if they're even going to bother writing some lore, like why he's in the game. But one way or the other, pretty strange. Next up is Rexxar. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of him for some reason. I must have missed him. But Rexxar is the Beastmaster of Outland. You run across him in World of Warcraft, but predominantly reintroduced from Warcraft 3. Very, very big character in the Orc area. Basically helps Thrall rebuild Orgrimmar and kind of get everything set up. In Warcraft, if I remember correctly, he is the final... He's like one of the quest givers for the Onyxia chain, wandering around in Desolus, maybe? I can't remember. That's been a long time, boys. Maybe Blasted Lands, one of those places. And then in Burning Crusade, he moves to the Horde outpost in Thousand Needles. But he's a pretty, I think he's half ogre, half orc, so pretty large man. Some of his abilities are Axe Throw, Thunder Fury, Summon Thunder Lizard. This is actually a champion, if I remember correctly, that had a place in the original Dota. I don't know if he's in the newest Dota, but he was basically, it's a Beastmaster, so summons a lot of pets, stuff like that. We'll see how that works out in a game like this. Not sure how controlling pets is going to happen, but either way, next up on the list is Silvanus. Now, this is a very interesting and heavily fantasized character. She was essentially a night elf, or a high elf, actually, not a night elf. The picture on the right there in that stock is her previous, I guess, is what people are fantasizing about. But she had regular night elf, and when Arthas, as the Lich King, came to invade Kael'thas and take over the Sunwell, he ran into her. She was the first line of defense. Honestly, the Warcraft 3 campaign for the undead, it's really well made. It's probably one of my favorite. The story behind it, where she like single-handedly fights off everything the Horde or the Scourge have to offer, and she almost wins. Honestly, you know, if it wasn't for the way the story was written, I could see her winning easily. But unfortunately, she dies, and Arthas is a bastard, so he's not going to let her die. He's going to resurrect her as a zombie, and now she is resurrected as a zombie. That's a true statement. She is the undead leader for World of Warcraft, one of the original 4 from the game as well. She's changed a lot in World of Warcraft. I think that's her newest model. She looks a lot better than she used to. But one way or the other, another character, kind of like Gina, a strong female lead is something that a lot of people do want to identify with. So it's no surprise she's in this game. Now this is very similar to, I believe it's called Drow Ranger. I know for a fact that Silvanus had multiple incarnations. The original Silvanus, the Archer model for Warcraft 3, was used to base the character Ashe on League of Legends. And then I feel like the Drow Ranger, if that's what it's actually called in the new Dota, is a reference to the previous Silvanus. But Banshee Cry, Dark Arrow, you know, these are abilities we've seen before. Will of the Forsaken, not sure what that means. I believe that she had some type of silence in the original Dota for Warcraft, so we'll see how that goes. Thrall is next up on the list. Obviously, very, very iconic character. No surprise that he's coming in, especially if you got characters like Lich King, Arthas. These people are in. You got to have Thrall in. He's a legend, no doubt about it, holding the mighty Doomhammer from his father Durtan and wearing the Ancestral Tribe's armor. Pairs up with Grom Hellscream, who I'm also hoping to see in this game. A pretty iconic character as well. Going to see him in WoD a lot. Thrall is going back in time to pretty much rectify what Garrosh has done wrong. He's going to meet his father, as we've seen from some of the screenshots and stuff from WoD. So that's pretty cool. In the original Warcraft, he was a Farseer, more of a like a seer than a shaman. A lot more magic use. Nowadays, he's pretty much playing enhancement, dual wielding, but he's not using a second weapon, so he's a monster, no doubt about it. Let's see what some of his abilities entail. Frost Shock, Unleashed Elements, Lightning Shield, Earthbind Totem. So it doesn't seem like exactly the Farseer in the original game was kind of like a pet class almost. Chain Lightning, stuff like that, kind of more utility. I guess he's kind of following that lead, although no Feral Wolves doesn't look like it's going to be part of it. But either way, Lava Lash, pretty cool ability in WoW. Let's see what it does in Heroes. And then the final one, unfortunately, is another character I'm not really familiar with. Zagara, a brood mother, if I remember correctly from what I read previous. A StarCraft character, obviously. I think this is only the second StarCraft character that's on this list. In fact, I believe all of them were from World of Warcraft, except... Yeah, you know what? I think... I know Azmodan was from Diablo. But so out of that list that we just went through, pretty much they're all World of Warcraft. That's a good thing because the game is obviously, you know, the focal point for Blizzard. When you think of Blizzard, you think of the Warcraft universe. Even if it's not WoW, Warcraft 3 had a lot of cool characters. Not saying StarCraft and Diablo don't, but the fact that I don't even know what this person looks like means it's less recognized, you know. Not necessarily a bad video game, but that's just the facts. So we don't know much about this character at this point. Some of the abilities spawn Mutalisk, Baneling Barrage, Hatch Infested Terran, Nidus Worm. I don't know what any of this means, honestly. I imagine it's going to be maybe a character that's probably an assassin just based on the way she looks, and just kind of maybe spawn some ads, kind of do some range damage, stuff like that. Spawn Hydralisk. That's pretty interesting. I mean, it begs the question. It really does, makes you think. But anyway, that's pretty much everything. I'm looking forward to this game a lot. Unfortunately, I can't get in yet. I'd love to. I'd really love to. I've been doing everything I can, but hopefully the next wave goes out. Maybe I'll get some footage for you guys, and we start talking about the actual champions in the game instead of just looking at a website.